The post hit like thunder. Kirk Frost, standing in soft Atlanta sunlight, typed 7 words that turned the internet upside down. "We still won, always will be." Within minutes, his Instagram flooded with millions of likes, hearts, and shocked comments. Fans who'd spent months guessing whether he and Rasheeda were done for couldn't believe what they were seeing. After all the rumors, the quiet and that cryptic story she posted with the broken heart emoji, everyone had decided their love story was over. But now, it felt like Atlanta itself had stopped breathing for a second. People started screen recording, reposting, tagging the Shade Room, and tweeting things like, "Wait, are we being pranked?" The comments ran wild, some cheering for the couple's comeback, others accusing Kirk of trying to clean up his image before the new season dropped. Fans dug into the photo details, Rasheeda's hand visible in the corner, the gold ring glinting just enough to spark 1,000 theories. Had they secretly renewed their vows? Was this a publicity stunt? Or had love, against every headline and heartbreak, really won this time? The tension wasn't just online. Insiders whispered that the post wasn't random, it came after an emotional night neither of them expected to go public. Sources claimed Kirk showed up at Frost Bistro after closing hours, when Rasheeda was still there going over invoices. There were no cameras, no crew, just silence, broken by him saying her name softly. Something about the way he looked at her made her stop mid-sentence. That's when he pulled out his phone, took the photo, and posted it without a word. By the time dawn came, Atlanta's gossip circles were in chaos. Producers called, publicists panicked, and fans swore they'd witnessed the most shocking love story twist since their original breakup years ago. Kirk and Rasheeda, the couple who'd been tested more times than anyone could count, had just rewritten their own narrative live. But what no one knew yet was what really happened the night before, and why Kirk's post wasn't just a declaration of love. It was a warning. Something big was coming, and their picture-perfect moment might be hiding the storm behind it. Under the glow of Atlanta's skyline, the night felt heavier than usual. Kirk Frost sat in his car outside Frost Bistro, the engine off, his phone glowing faintly on the dashboard. For hours he had scrolled through old pictures of him and Rasheeda backstage at shows, holding hands at premieres, laughing in hotel lobbies. Years of chaos and redemption all trapped in filtered snapshots. He hesitated before opening Instagram again. That same post staring back at him like a heartbeat. "We still won, always will be." He could feel the world reacting beyond the glass. Fans debating, gossip pages spinning, and producers already drafting call sheets for tomorrow's headlines. But right now, none of that mattered. What mattered was that Rasheeda hadn't said a word since he posted it. Inside the bistro, Rasheeda stood behind the counter, pretending to check inventory while her phone buzzed nonstop. Texts from friends, DMs from bloggers, even her mom calling twice. She knew the post would explode. It always did when Kirk opened his mouth about their marriage, but this one hit differently. "We still won." Those words were supposed to mean peace, not pressure. The truth was, they hadn't been in sync for months, not after that argument about the new artist Kirk signed. The one everyone swore looked too much like Jasmine. Rasheeda had brushed it off in public, smiling for cameras, but behind closed doors she'd packed a bag twice. Still, when he showed up tonight quiet, tired, holding his phone, instead of his pride, something in her softened. The sound of the door unlocking broke the silence. Kirk stepped in, wearing that same denim jacket she'd once called his apology uniform. His eyes met hers, unsure but steady. "I didn't mean to cause a storm," he said, voice low. Rasheeda crossed her arms. "You never mean to, Kirk. But somehow, we always end up trending." He smiled faintly, the kind that carried too much history to be sincere. "I just wanted people to know we ain't done." She exhaled sharply. "People or you?" Her tone cut through the room. She was tired of saving face, tired of pretending peace was easy. He walked closer, every step heavier than the last. "I know I messed up," he began, his usual line, but this time it sounded different, less defensive, more desperate. I don't want you walking away thinking I didn't fight for us." She looked at him, eyes wet but cold. "You don't fight, Kirk. You post. You say things that sound nice, but they fix nothing." Her words stung. Still, he reached for her hand, and she didn't pull away. The silence between them filled the room like smoke. Outside, a black SUV slowed near the curb. Inside it sat Jasmine, Washington, scrolling through her phone. She'd seen the post too, and it didn't sit right with her. Not because she wanted Kirk back, those days were gone, but because she knew the pattern. Every time Kirk went public with declarations of love, it meant something was brewing behind the scenes. She texted someone, he posted it, Told you it was coming. The reply came fast. Keep watching. It's bigger than a post. Back inside, Rasheeda broke the silence first. What are you hiding? Her question hung between them like a trap. Kirk blinked. Nothing. I just wanted to remind the world we're good. She shook her head slowly. The world doesn't care if we're good. They care if we break. And you keep giving them reasons. She walked toward the window, staring at the streetlights. Every time I try to move past it, something drags me back. Kirk rubbed his neck, the guilt crawling back. I can't change the past, but I can try to fix what's left. She turned sharply. Then stop lying to me. The words landed like a hit. Kirk froze. He hadn't expected that tone. Not tonight. What you mean? He asked carefully. Rasheeda reached for her phone, scrolling to a message she'd received earlier. Explain this. She shoved the screen toward him. It was a screenshot of a DM thread, his name at the top. Messages blurred but timestamps recent. Don't tell me this ain't you. Kirk's stomach tightened. He recognized the format. It was his account, but he hadn't sent those. At least, he didn't think he had. Before he could speak, her phone buzzed again. Another message. Another screenshot, this time from a gossip page tagging both of them. Sources say Kirk's recent post was damage control after private messages resurfaced. She stared at him, waiting. So you posted that picture right after this dropped? Kirk swallowed hard. Rasheeda, I don't know who's sending that stuff, but it ain't me. She raised an eyebrow. Then who? Your phone got a mind of its own. He moved closer, lowering his voice. Somebody's playing with us. I swear. She didn't flinch. It's always somebody, isn't it? Somebody sent Jasmine that check. Somebody leaked our villa footage. Somebody hacked your phone. When does it stop being somebody and start being you? Her voice cracked. Kirk had no answer. At that same moment, across town, Mona Skottung sat in her office watching everything unfold online. Her assistant walked in, holding a tablet. Ratings just spiked 20%, she said. Mona smirked. Of course they did. They always do when love wins until it doesn't. She leaned back, already dialing a number. Set up a meeting with both of them tomorrow. We're not letting this energy go to waste. As Kirk stood in the middle of Frost Bistro, he realized something he hadn't admitted to himself yet. It wasn't just his marriage on the line. His entire legacy was hanging by a thread, and this post might have been the final spark before everything burned. Rasheeda's silence was worse than her anger. She just looked at him like she'd seen this movie too many times to expect a new ending. If you're really telling the truth, she said quietly, then prove it. Because I'm done covering for you. He nodded slowly, voice steady but eyes trembling. I'll prove it. Tonight. She frowned. Kirk pulled out his phone again, scrolling through his messages until he reached one thread, the one he hadn't opened yet. A new message blinked at the bottom. Meet me before midnight. I know what they're planning. No name, just a location. Kirk's stomach twisted. Whoever sent it knew something. Maybe Jasmine. Maybe someone else. He looked back at Rasheeda. Give me one night, he said. Just one. She crossed her arms again. And if I do, he hesitated, then I'll come back with the truth. And you'll know once and for all whether I'm the villain they say I am. She stared at him, the weight of their history pressing down like gravity. You already are, Kirk, she said softly, but maybe tonight, you can change the ending. He left without another word. The street outside was empty, the air thick. His phone buzzed again with that same unknown number. Same location pin. He started walking faster, not sure what he was chasing or what was about to find him first. The address pinged him to a half-lit parking lot behind an old studio off Edgewood, the kind of place where Atlanta's sound used to be born. Before everything moved into slick glass buildings and branded lobbies, a flickering security light made the asphalt look wet even though it hadn't rained. Kirk parked 2 spaces from the back door and watched the shadows breathe along the brick. His heart kicked against his ribs, not just from the unknown number or the location, but from the way Rasheeda's voice still echoed in his head, calm and final like a judge reading a sentence. He told himself this was about truth, not ego. He told himself he was done with secrets. And yet, there he was, following a pin like a thread through a maze he promised he'd stop walking. The door opened a crack. A woman's voice slipped out first. You took your time. He stepped closer, and the person came into the low light. It wasn't Jasmine. It was a producer he recognized from a season they barely survived. A woman known for hearing everything before the cast did. She wore a hoodie, no makeup, hair tucked away. Kirk, she said, eyes scanning the lot. You posted that at the worst possible time. He squinted. You're the one texting me? She nodded once. I'm the one trying to keep you from getting buried. His jaw tightened. By who? She opened the door wider and waved him in. by the people who used to clap when you walked in a room. Inside, the studio smelled like dust and old bass. Foam panels peeled away from the walls. On a fold-out table sat a laptop, a stack of hard drives, and 3 phones with cracked screens. The producer kept her voice low as if the room itself had ears. "I'll make this short," she said. "Someone is preparing a drop messages, contracts, a few clips from the villa situation and beyond. It's a mosaic. Alone, they're messy and boring. Together, they tell a story that makes you look like you never changed." He swallowed, anger and fear wrestling behind his eyes. "And why would you help me?" She clicked open a folder on the laptop and turned the screen toward him. "Because if you go down, half the machine goes with you. And because I don't like sloppy revenge." The folder contained a jumble of screenshots and short videos, some labeled, some not. One caught his eye immediately. A screen recording of a DM thread from his verified account. The same format Rasheeda shoved in his face, but the phrasing was off. Too eager, like a bad impression. He leaned in. "That's not me." The producer tilted her head. "No. But the audience won't care. They'll see the checkmark and the tone they already believe." She clicked another file. A muted clip showed him at Frost Bistro's back patio weeks ago, laughing with the new artist, her hand brushing his forearm as she stood to leave. The angle was wrong for a phone. It looked like footage from a small mounted cam. "Where did this come from?" he asked. Her mouth flattened. "You don't want to know. Focus on what's next." His phone buzzed again. Another text from the unknown number flashed across the screen he still held. "Clock's ticking. Decide which story you want told." He looked up at the producer. "What are they after?" Her eyes didn't blink. "Pain. Ratings, ahead on a spike. And if they can fracture you and Rasheeda right as you to hint at reconciliation, the noise multiplies." He exhaled through his teeth. "So I'm supposed to do what? Go live and cry?" She shook her head. "No, you're supposed to get ahead without looking like you're getting ahead. There's a difference. You posted love wins. Now you need to show why. Not with flowers. With receipts." That word hung like a key in a lock. He thought of Rasheeda standing by the window, her hands shaking around a phone that never stopped ringing. He thought of the times she took hits for him because she believed he'd eventually grow up. He thought of their son walking into the kitchen the day after a scandal broke, pretending not to notice the way both parents avoided the news. He'd told himself he was protecting his family by staying silent. Maybe silence had just been another selfish choice. He leaned on the table, knuckles white. "What do you want from me?" The producer tapped one of the cracked phones. "This is a number used to seed the villa clips. Whoever's behind it thinks they're invisible, but they recycle patterns. I've mapped 3 drops to the same window late night, 30 minutes before the gossip pages wake up. Tonight is one of those windows. I need you to sit in the studio and wait. When it pings, you answer like you're them." Kirk stared at her. "And if I get caught?" Her expression didn't change. "Then we both pretend we never met tonight, but if you don't try, I'm not sure you'll have a marriage left to lose." He pulled out a chair. "Fine. Tell me what to say." She opened a new text thread on the burner, typed a single line, and saved it in drafts. "When their next bait drops, this goes out. We're going to prove the leak isn't random. We'll bait them back." He nodded, breath unsteady. "And Rasheeda," the producer's voice softened, "send her a picture of the room you're in. Not for proof to the world, for proof to her. Not flowers, not promises. A picture of work." Across town, Jasmine sat at her kitchen counter, tablet propped against a bowl, watching a live stream, dissecting the post. The chat scrolled like a slot machine. She brushed a crumb from the marble and texted a friend in a tone that tried to sound detached. "It's always the same with him." The friend replied, "You still hurt?" Jasmine sucked her teeth at the screen and typed, "I'm tired." Then she swiped to another chat, one with a contact labeled only with an emoji crown, and typed, "Does your plan require me to actually talk?" The reply came fast, bubbly, "Only if you want to watch the city flip twice." Jasmine closed her eyes for a second. History made everything complicated. Loyalty made it messy. Somewhere in the noise, she still wanted Rasheeda to win. Somewhere else, she wanted him to sweat. Both could be true. At Frost Bistro, Rasheeda sat alone at a corner table, the chairs upside down on other tables, like sleeping animals. The night manager had left 10 minutes ago. She stared at the "We Still Won" caption again, and noticed the faint reflection in the window glass behind Kirk's shoulder. A poster for a local showcase hung near the door. The date from 3 weeks ago, the corner peeling up. She remembered that night. An argument had started and then fizzled, and she had gone home early to record a voice note she never sent. "We keep saying love wins," she'd whispered to a blank message. "But love needs oxygen, and I can't breathe like this." She found the draft now and listened to her own voice in the quiet. When it ended, she hit delete. Then she opened her camera, took a photo of the empty restaurant, and texted it to only one person. "You want proof?" she typed. "So do I." Back in the studio, the burner phone vibrated against the plastic table, a small jump that felt like thunder. The producer's eyes flicked to the clock on the laptop. "Right on time," she whispered. Kirk picked it up. A link pulsed in the text bubble. No words. The link went to a private page with a countdown timer. 4 minutes. Below it, a line of text. "The picture-perfect couple keeps their best secrets off camera." Kirk felt heat rise in his neck. The producer leaned in. "We're going to answer before it unlocks. Draft now." He opened the saved line and stared at the words like they were a bridge over a canyon. "Nice try. Upload a clean version. Last file had your watermark tucked in the corner." His thumb hovered. "There's no watermark," he said. The producer smiled for the first time. "There will be if they panic." He sent it. 30 seconds later, the countdown stuttered. The page refreshed. A second link replaced the first. The producer's fingers flew across the laptop, slicing open network tools, tracing the path of the upload. "Come on," she muttered. "Show me where you live." Kirk watched the lines of code crawl like ants. He thought of all the ways he'd told himself he wasn't a villain. He thought of how villains always thought they were just misunderstood. His chest hurt. The new link opened to a clip no one was supposed to see. Him and Rasheeda in their backyard after a late shoot, arguing in circles that never resolved. In the space between their words lived exhaustion. No cheating, no scandal, just a people failing at kindness. He felt shame because it was real. The producer paused the clip and pointed to the corner. A pixelated smudge hid in the grass line. "Amateurs," she said, almost fondly. She zoomed, scrubbed, and separated layers until 3 letters blinked up. A tag that looked like a signature. VPR. She typed VPR into a private directory and hit return. A row of aliases dropped down like a family tree. Multiple accounts, routing to one scheduler that pushed content to a handful of gossip pages at set times. A ghost behind a curtain. "I've seen this pattern," she said. "Somebody thinks they're a network." Kirk's stomach turned when he recognized one of the outs in the list. A name tied to a manager who once promised him a comeback storyline that ended in a tabloid. "It's them," he breathed. "It's always been them." The producer locked eyes with him. "Then don't flinch." His own phone lit with a new text from Rasheeda. The empty bistro table. The caption he felt in his bones. "You want proof. So do I." He snapped the studio, the table with burner phones, the laptop, mid-trace, his face nowhere near the frame. He wrote back, "This is me breathing. Stay with me 1 more hour. No hearts, no pleading. Just the picture of work." She didn't reply, and he didn't expect her to. Sometimes staying was a quiet decision made without words. The burner pinged again, this time with a message instead of a link. "Who is this?" the sender asked. The producer's hand hovered over his wrist. "Careful now," she said. "If they smell fear, they vanish." Kirk typed as if he'd done this 100 times. "Someone who knows your schedule," he wrote, "and someone who knows your client isn't paying you enough to carry their sins." The reply took longer. "Name your price." The producer mouthed. "Stall." Kirk tapped, "Proof first. Show me the villa raw. No cuts." A new link arrived. Direct file share. Bypassing the pretty countdown. The producer mirrored it to the laptop and killed the Wi-Fi on everything else. "We keep this air-gapped," she said. "If they try to backwalk the path, they'll hit a wall." The raw footage loaded. Moonlight wobbling over water. Laughter bleeding into whispers. A grainy angle from a planter near a patio. It wasn't the smoking gun the gossip pages wanted, but it was enough to make a faithful woman's stomach twist. The producer froze the frame and pointed to another tiny scrawl in the lower right. A signature buried under noise. Same letters, VPR. She exhaled. "We've got chain of custody now. Whoever posted this owns the raw. And whoever owns the raw thinks no one will ever map them because their enemies are too angry to be patient." Kirk rubbed his face with both hands. "How does this fix my marriage?" The producer's answer surprised him. "It doesn't. You fix your marriage. This only clears the air so you can see each other again." Mona's phone buzzed where it lay on her desk. Her assistant had sent a brief. Leak wave moving. Kirk, dark. Rasheeda quiet. Jasmine, in observation mode. Audience frothing. Mona tapped a pen against her chin, thinking of cameras, of confessionals, the way two truths can sit in one room without canceling each other. She dialed another number, someone who made careers from chaos, and said, "If they're smart, they're building proof. If they're sloppy, they'll go live." Build 2 plans. We follow whichever story they feed. Somewhere between the studio and the bistro, a car idled at a light. Inside, a younger cast member filmed a story about staying out of grown folks' business while absolutely not staying out of it. The city hummed under everything like a bat. People who had never met Kirk or Rasheeda fired off opinions that felt like verdicts. Fans were shocked, emotions ran high, and the family was left divided across group chats and muted threads. Kirk read a comment from a stranger that said, "If they make it, maybe we all can." And for a moment, he let the hope land before the cynicism scraped it away. In the studio, the burner lit again, a final test from the handler behind VPR. Drop at 2 a.m., the message read. After that, no more freebies. The producer nodded at the clock. We've got time to decide what you want the world to see first, their raw or your truth. Kirk stood, pushed his chair back, and walked to the narrow window. The alley outside smelled like old smoke and summer heat, trapped in brick. He thought of his kids asleep, the dog, who always waited by the door when he came home late. The way Rasheeda's laugh used to fill a room and make every mistake feel like a bruise instead of a broken bone. He turned back to the table. We go with both, he said. We show the raw if we have to, but I'm done reacting to everyone else's script. I'm going to tell them what happened in our house and what didn't. No edits, no soundtrack. The producer studied him like she was measuring a stranger's spine. Then she clicked a new window open and slid the laptop toward him. Record, she said. One take. You talk to her the way you should have before you ever talk to them. He stared at the small camera, like it could absolve or condemn him. His thumb hesitated over the Then his other phone buzzed. Rasheeda, again. This time just 3 words. Don't lie tonight. He didn't know if it was a threat or a lifeline. Maybe it was both. He hit record. And the room shifted, smaller and heavier, like a church right before the first note of a hymn. Rasheeda, he began, eyes on the lens but seeing her instead. I know the world feels like a third person in our marriage. I let them in every time I tried to fix us with a quote instead of work. I'm not asking you to forgive anything. I'm asking you to listen while I say exactly where I've been and what I've done. His voice steadied, not with performance but with something that sounded like surrender. He named the nights he had been late and the reasons that weren't good enough. He named the boundaries he hadn't guarded because attention felt like oxygen. He said the names of people who would never trend and didn't deserve to be pulled into the spotlight. He didn't cry. He didn't charm. He didn't sell a future. He just put down the pieces and let silence hold them. The producer stopped the recording and played the first 30 seconds back. It didn't sound like TV. It sounded like a man with nothing left to trade except honesty. She saved it to 2 separate drives and handed one to him. If you change your mind later, she said, that's your right. But if you post this alongside their raw, the audience will have to choose between spectacle and something truer. Some will still pick spectacle. He nodded. We don't need everybody. She checked the clock again. 40 minutes until their drop. Make your move. He texted the clip to only one person first. Not a blogger, not a producer, not a friend who loved to screenshot. He sent it to the woman sitting alone in a restaurant that had both made them money and cost them peace. The typing bubbles came and went, then vanished. No reply. He felt the familiar panic crawl up his throat and pressed it down. This time, he wouldn't chase. He would post when the truth could be seen beside the lie and let the noise do what it always did. The city breathed. The countdown to 2 a.m. ticked louder than the wall clock. The burner pinged with a final taunt, ready to watch your fairy tale burn. Kirk didn't respond. The producer shut the laptop and looked at him like a coach right before the team walks onto a field where the other side is bigger and meaner. Go home, she said. Or go to the bistro. Either way, be somewhere you can stand still when the wave hits. He tucked the drive into his inner pocket and stepped back into the sticky-lit alley. The night pressing against his skin like a reminder that Atlanta never sleeps. It just leans in closer. Halfway to his car, his phone vibrated again. A single photo from Rasheeda filled the screen. Their backyard at dawn. The same place as the raw clip, but empty and quiet, the sky bruising into morning. Beneath it, 5 words that didn't forgive and didn't condemn, but held space like a door unlocked from the inside. Tell the truth, I'm listening. He looked up at the slice of sky above the alley and finally understood the cost of choosing silence over clarity. He opened his app, attached his video, and hovered over the share button while the city counted down to a different kind of premiere. One that didn't promise heroes or villains, only 2 people trying not to drown in a story they once wrote together. The video uploaded at 1:59 a.m. Atlanta time. Kirk sat in his car outside Frost Bistro, watching the numbers climb 50 views. 200, then 2,000 before he even exhaled. No flashy captions. No hashtags, no edits. Just a 4-minute clip of him talking straight to the camera about truth, silence, and love. Fans froze mid-scroll. The gossip pages stumbled over their scheduled posts. Because right as Kirk's video dropped, the so-called raw villa footage hit too, but it didn't land the way the leakers expected. People saw two windows playing side by side. On one screen, a grainy patio argument, barely audible over crickets. On the other, Kirk's voice tired, clear, stripped of charm. The contrast hit like thunder. Comments flooded in. This feels real. Wait, he's owning it. Rasheeda, please pick up the phone. Inside the bistro, Rasheeda watched the upload in silence. The clip wasn't smooth or strategic. His words stumbled and paused in ways that couldn't be rehearsed. She noticed how his hands trembled when he mentioned their kids. How he looked up only when he said her name. Something in her chest shifted. Not forgiveness yet, but the first breath after months of holding it. By 2:30 a.m., Atlanta gossip cycles spun wild. Mona Scott Young woke to a dozen alerts. Her assistant whispering, "The Frost video is outperforming everything." Mona rubbed her temple. "Let them have their moment," she said, "but book cameras for tomorrow anyway." Jasmine, lying awake in her condo, watched it too. When the clip ended, she whispered to no one. He finally said it. She thought about texting Rasheeda, then didn't. Sometimes, silence was the only message that didn't make things worse. Across social media, headlines flipped tone. Love wins or damage control. Kirk Frost finally breaks his silence. Fans dissected every blink, every pause. One tweet went viral. "This man looks like he's telling the truth for the first time in his career." Back in the studio, the producer "He just turned the narrative," she murmured. Kirk hadn't moved. He kept watching the same numbers climb, each view heavier than the last. When his phone buzzed, he almost didn't look until he saw the name, Rasheeda. Her message was short. "Come to the house." No cameras. The drive home was quiet, the kind of silence that feels like waiting for judgment. The porch light was on. The door unlocked. He stepped inside to find her sitting at the kitchen island, a mug in both hands, face unreadable. "You talked," she said. "Yeah," he answered. "Not to them, to me." He nodded, voice low. "I owed you that." She stared at him for a long time before sliding her phone across the counter. On it, his video. Paused at the frame where he said, "I'm not asking for forgiveness." She pressed play and let the rest run until he said, "I'm just asking you to listen." She looked up. "So talk." And he did. Not the public version, not the edited timeline. He told her about the message from the producer, the files, the burner phones, the people trying to set him up for ratings. He told her how scared he was to face himself without a storyline. Every word sat between them like evidence. When he finished, Rasheeda didn't speak right away. She looked out the window toward the backyard, the place that had almost destroyed them both. "You think this fixes us?" she asked. "No," he said, "but it stops them from writing our ending." She stood slowly. "Then you'd better keep telling the truth, because once the sun comes up, this isn't just about you. It's about all of us who had to live with the fallout." By sunrise, Frost Bistro's parking lot was packed with reporters and fans holding phones. The couple didn't show. Instead, a handwritten note was taped to the door. "Closed today. Family first." Inside their house, Kirk brewed coffee while Rasheeda scrolled through new headlines. Love wins trended again, but this time, it wasn't sarcasm. She turned the phone face down and said quietly, "We're not there yet." He nodded. "I know. But maybe we're facing the same direction again." Outside, the city buzzed with speculation, but for the first time in months, the noise stayed outside. Love hadn't solved anything overnight. It had only survived the night hand that, somehow, felt like enough for now. By the next afternoon, Atlanta felt like it was vibrating. Every blog, every gossip page, every talk show from New York to Los Angeles was replaying Kirk's video in loops, pausing it like a confession. Reporters waited outside Frost Bistro for hours, hoping to catch even a glimpse of the couple. And when the restaurant finally opened its doors late that evening, it wasn't Kirk who stepped out first. It was Rasheeda, calm, composed, wearing a black tracksuit and sunglasses even though the sun had already dipped below the skyline. The cameras shouted her name, flashes bursting like gunfire. She didn't stop. She just said, "Love wins because it works for it," then slid into her car and drove off. Kirk watched the clip later on a friend's phone. It didn't feel like a victory lap, but it didn't sting either. He knew what she meant. They'd had a quiet day. No speeches, no explanations. Just sitting across the living room from each other while their phones buzzed nonstop. Sometimes she'd glance up at him, sometimes she wouldn't. Once, She said, "You sound tired in that video." He'd replied, "I am." She nodded. "Good. You finally stopped acting." In the background, the kids had wandered in and out, sensing something fragile in the air. Their oldest had asked if people were still mad online. Kirk told him, "They'll always be mad about something." The boy shrugged, grabbed a snack, and said, "Well, you and Mom are still here." That line stayed with him longer than any headline. At the same time, Jasmine sat in her apartment scrolling through comments that mentioned her name again, though she hadn't said a word publicly. One of the gossip pages had posted old photos of her and Kirk side by side with the caption, "Would love still win if this queen talked?" She turned her phone over, staring at the ceiling. She'd been part of their chaos once, and now she was watching it from the outside. It didn't feel satisfying, it felt heavy. She thought about sending Rasheeda a message that said, "I hope you're okay," but she deleted it before hitting send. Some wounds didn't need reminders. Mona Scott Young, meanwhile, sat in her office reviewing footage from years of filming them. She paused on a scene from a decade ago, Kirk and Rasheeda laughing in a hotel suite. No scripts, no tension, just laughter. She leaned back and said softly, "This is the show I wish we'd kept." Her assistant poked her head in. "You want me to schedule interviews?" Mona nodded slowly. "Yes, but no drama questions. This time, we asked them about peace." As evening fell, Kirk and Rasheeda took a drive through the city. No destination, just moving. The air between them was quiet, but not empty. At a stoplight, Kirk said, "I don't know if people will ever believe us again." She looked out the window. "They don't have to. I just need to." He smiled faintly. "So what now?" She hesitated. "Now, we see if love can breathe without the cameras." At a red light, a car full of young fans pulled up beside them, shouting, "We love you, Rasheeda. Love wins." She waved, just barely, and when the light turned green, she said, "That used to make me proud. Now it just reminds me how much we gave them." Kirk nodded, keeping his eyes on the road. "We can take some of it back." Meanwhile, across the internet, a new theory began spreading that Kirk's video was only the first part of something bigger, that he was planning to expose everyone who'd profited off their pain. Blogs speculated about a tell-all. Others said he'd be announcing a documentary. Some fans begged him not to turn sincerity into strategy, but Kirk didn't answer. For once, he didn't need to. Later that night, they sat together on the porch, a small lamp glowing between them. Rasheeda scrolled through her phone, showing him a comment that read, "This is what growth looks like." She said quietly, "You think we've really grown?" He looked at her and said, "We stopped pretending. Maybe that's a start." She smiled faintly, the first real one he'd seen in weeks. Inside, the TV played low. News anchors still dissecting their marriage like it was breaking news, but outside, the cicadas hummed, the air thick and familiar. And for the first time in a long while, it didn't feel like they were performing. The world would keep watching, guessing, arguing, but the truth sat between them, messy, tired, real. And when Kirk reached over to take her hand, she didn't pull away. The night stretched soft over Atlanta, the kind of quiet that comes after too much noise. Kirk and Rasheeda stayed on the porch until the streetlights blinked out one by one. Neither of them spoke for a long time. They didn't need to. Sometimes silence did the talking better than words. Kirk leaned back, watching the sky lighten over the rooftops. "You ever think we made this city tired of us?" he asked. Rasheeda gave a small laugh, dry and low. "The city's addicted to us." "Tired, yeah, but addicted." He smiled at that. The truth sat somewhere in the middle. For over a decade, Atlanta had eaten up every fight, every tear, every rumor. People had grown up with them, loved them, judged them, forgiven them, and judged again. Their names were carved into the fabric of the show, the gossip, the culture. And now, after everything, they were still here. Maybe not perfect, but present. Around 6 a.m., the world started calling again. Kirk's phone buzzed nonstop. Producers, reporters, friends pretending to check in but really fishing for quotes. He ignored them all, except one. A message from his son read, "Mom's smiling again. Don't mess it up." He sent back a thumbs up, then put the phone face down. Rasheeda stood, stretching her legs. "I'm going to open the bistro late today," she said. "Just brunch, no press." Kirk nodded. "Want me to come?" She looked at him for a moment, then said, "No cameras, no speeches, just come eat." It wasn't forgiveness, but it was something better. An invitation back into the ordinary. While they got ready, Atlanta buzzed like a hive. TV anchors debated whether their reunion was real or strategic. Talk show hosts praised Rasheeda's strengths. One even said, "She's the blueprint for grace." Fans online started using the hashtag #LoveWinsAgain, but this time it wasn't ironic. Every time someone posted a clip of the two, the comments flooded with stories, women talking about forgiving their partners, men admitting they'd made mistakes too. Somehow, the Frost story had turned into a mirror for everyone watching. Meanwhile, Jasmine was sitting with her laptop, watching the chaos unfold. She clicked on the live video Kirk had posted, pausing on the part where he said, "Love's not easy. It's not clean, but it's ours." She replayed it twice, then closed the laptop. For the first time in years, she didn't feel like the villain of somebody else's story. She opened her notes app and typed a single sentence. "Maybe peace is when you stop wanting to explain yourself." By mid-morning, Kirk arrived at the bistro. A few fans were outside taking selfies with the mural of him and Rasheeda painted on the wall, years ago. He nodded politely, went inside, and saw Rasheeda behind the counter, wearing her apron, hair tied up, no makeup. It felt like 2010 again, back before fame stretched their love thin. She glanced up. "You're early," she said. "You told me to come eat." He smiled. "You know I don't argue with orders." She poured him coffee and slid him a plate without asking what he wanted. As they sat, a few staff members whispered near the kitchen, eyes wide. They weren't used to seeing the two like this, quiet, almost normal. One of them muttered, "They look like they actually like each other again." Kirk picked at his food, then said softly, "You remember when we opened this place?" Rasheeda nodded. "I remember you said it'd be a place where we could start over." He laughed. "Guess we just forgot how to." She took a sip of her coffee. "Maybe we just got distracted trying to prove we were fine." He reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. Rasheeda frowned. "What's that?" He slid it across the table. "Something I started writing before last night." She unfolded it and read quietly. It was a list not of apologies, but of plans. Fixing the bistro's finances, spending weekends offline, family dinners every Friday, therapy appointments already scheduled. "You serious about this?" she asked. "For once," he said. She folded the paper and slipped it into her pocket. "Then we'll see." It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. That afternoon, Mona Scott Young posted a single line on her own social media. "Sometimes the best storyline is growth." It got hundreds of thousands of likes. And a few hours later, an anonymous insider leaked that she was planning a special Love Wins episode. One that would show the couple not as characters, but as people learning to coexist again. When Kirk saw the headline, he shook his head. "She never misses a chance." Rasheeda smirked. "Let her. This time, we control what they see." As evening fell, they closed up the bistro together. The air smelled like sugar and lemon cleaner. Kirk flipped the lights off while Rasheeda counted the register. For the first time in months, the day had passed without shouting, without rumors, without anyone breaking something. It wasn't exciting, it was peaceful, and peace, for them, was rare enough to feel revolutionary. When they stepped outside, the city lights flickered across their car. Kirk paused, looking at her. "So, love wins?" he asked. She smiled faintly. "Love tries." Then she got in the car, leaving the door open just long enough for him to follow. The next morning came slow, with sunlight sliding through the blinds and the faint hum of Atlanta already waking. Kirk was the first to stir. The quiet felt unfamiliar, almost suspicious. For years, peace had meant something was about to break. But this time, it just stayed still. He looked across the bed and saw Rasheeda asleep, the same calm face that had once made him believe they could survive anything. Maybe they still could. He reached for his phone, half expecting another wave of chaos online, but instead found something else. Messages from fans. Not insults, not gossip, just thanks. "You reminded me love takes work. Your honesty made me talk to my husband again. Tell Rasheeda she deserves peace." For once, the internet wasn't tearing them apart, it was rooting for them. He scrolled for a while before setting the phone down. Rasheeda opened her eyes, blinking against the light. "You up already?" she asked, her voice still thick from sleep. "Yeah," he said. "Reading." She stretched, sat up, and looked at him carefully. "No new scandals." He smiled a little. "Just people actually saying something nice?" She raised an eyebrow. "Don't get used to it." He laughed softly. "I won't." After breakfast, she went to the bistro early to prep for a private event, leaving him home with the kids. The house felt different now, less like a battleground, more like something healing itself. While folding laundry, Kirk noticed an old framed photo tucked behind the bookshelf. It was them in 2013, smiling wide, holding hands at a red carpet premiere. He picked it up, wiping the dust away, and muttered, "We didn't know how much we'd have to pay for that smile." He set it back upright, like a small act of repair. At Frost Bistro, Rasheeda moved through the kitchen like she always had, focused, steady, unbothered. Still, whispers followed her. Staff members exchanged looks, customers snuck glances, and a few brave fans quietly said, "We're glad y'all working it out." She just smiled politely. She'd learned long ago not to believe everything said about her, good or bad. When the lunch rush slowed, she slipped into her office and pulled out the folded paper Kirk had given her. She reread the list: therapy, dinners, unplugged weekends, and for the first time, she believed he might actually keep his word. She texted him, "Therapy Monday. Don't be late." He replied within seconds, "I'll be early." By afternoon, Mona Scott-Young was already in meetings about the Love Wins special. Her team pitched ideas: old footage, unseen clips, sit-down interviews, but Mona stopped them mid-sentence. "We're not selling their pain this time," she said. "We're showing what survival looks like." Her assistant frowned. "That's not dramatic enough." Mona smiled. "You'll see. When two people refuse to fall apart, that's the biggest twist of all." Meanwhile, Jasmine sat with her friend on a rooftop cafe overlooking downtown. The conversation drifted to Kirk and Rasheeda, because it always did. "You think they'll last?" her friend asked. Jasmine sipped her drink and stared at the skyline. "I think they'll try. And that's more than most people do." She wasn't bitter anymore. Time had done its slow, quiet work. "I don't want to be part of that story anymore," she said. "I just want to be left out of the next chapter." Her friend nodded. "You deserve your own one." Jasmine smiled faintly. "Yeah, maybe I'll write it myself." Back at the house, Kirk was outside fixing the backyard lights when Rasheeda pulled in. He straightened up, wiping his hands. "Look who's early," she teased. "You told me not to be late," he said. "Figured I'd get a head start." They laughed lightly, and it felt easy again, something they hadn't felt in a long time. She handed him a takeout bag. "From the bistro? Don't say I never bring you lunch." He grinned. "So this means we're good." She smirked. "This means you get food. Good's gonna take time." As the day faded, the city around them started buzzing again: posts, tags, clips, but for once, they didn't chase it. They sat outside under the soft glow of the fixed lights, their kids laughing somewhere inside. Kirk leaned back in his chair. "You ever think we could just walk away from all of it?" he asked. Rasheeda looked at him. "From what?" "The show. The noise." He nodded. "Yeah, just disappear. Be normal." She thought for a long moment, then said, "We'd last a week. You'd miss the chaos." He laughed, because she was right. Still, for that night, they let the quiet win. No interviews, no producers, no scripts, just the sound of Atlanta breathing outside their porch, the air warm, the stars faint but visible, and somewhere between the noise they'd survived and the peace they were still learning to trust. Love didn't just win, it endured. 2 days later, the calm began to crack in small, almost invisible ways. The world had slowed for Kirk and Rasheeda, but the internet hadn't. New gossip started circulating: screenshots claiming Kirk's truth video was staged, that a publicist had helped write his speech. One post even showed a supposed script outline, though half the lines were clearly fake. Still, fans argued, reposted, and dissected. Love Wins had turned back into a battlefield overnight. Rasheeda saw the rumors first. She was in the middle of setting up for brunch when one of her waitresses whispered, "You seen this, boss?" She handed over her phone. There it was, the same old noise wearing new clothes. Rasheeda sighed, not angry, just tired. "Let them talk," she said, sliding the phone back. "We got tables to serve." But under her calm voice, something in her chest twisted. She'd thought maybe, just maybe, the peace would last longer this time. Kirk was at home fixing a door hinge when his manager called. "Bro, you seeing what's happening?" Kirk wiped sweat from his forehead. "If it's online, I don't care." "Nah, you should. They saying Mona planned the whole redemption arc, even leaked that video to build buzz." Kirk laughed quietly, a humorless sound. "They give her too much credit. And you not enough," the manager said. "Still, maybe do a live tonight. Just remind folks what's real." Kirk shook his head. "I said my piece. I'm not performing again." That evening, Rasheeda came home late. She walked past him in the kitchen without a word, poured herself a drink, and leaned against the counter. "They're saying you rehearsed that video," she said softly. "I didn't," he replied. "I know," she said, "but it still hurts to read it." He watched her eyes, tired but steady. "You don't believe them?" "No," she said. "I just hate that it never ends." They sat down together, the air heavy between them. Kirk reached across the table, his hand brushing hers. "Every time we try to move on, somebody digs up a ghost," he said. She nodded. "And every time, we start fighting the ghost instead of each other." His phone buzzed again, Mona's name flashing on the screen. He ignored it once, twice, 3 times, until Rasheeda finally said, "Answer her." She won't stop. He picked up yet. Mona's voice was brisk. You see the noise. Don't feed it. We're cutting a new trailer, something raw. Quiet, just you two in the bistro. No acting. You talk. She listens. Kirk's jaw tightened. You're turning this into another storyline. Mona sighed. No, I'm turning it into closure. People want to believe in something real, Kirk. Let them see it. He covered the mic with his hand and looked at Rasheeda. She wants us on camera again. Rasheeda's eyes narrowed. You said no more cameras. I did, he said. But she's saying what she always says. We owe her a show. The silence stretched. Finally, Rasheeda said, you want to do it, don't you? Kirk hesitated. I want people to hear us from our own mouths. Not the blogs. She nodded slowly. Then do it right. One take. No edits. He met her eyes. Together? She exhaled. Together. The next day, they met Mona's crew at Frost Bistro before dawn. No extras, no lights, just one camera and a boom mic. Kirk sat at the counter. Rasheeda across from him. Mona stayed behind the monitor, unusually quiet. Whenever you're ready, she said. Kirk started first. Voice steady. People keep saying everything we do is for show. Maybe they're right. But the truth is, the show saved us as much as it hurt us. It forced us to face what we didn't want to face. Rasheeda nodded slightly, her hands clasped on the counter. It made us learn how to talk when we'd rather shout. He looked at her. You mad I said yes to this? A little, she admitted. But maybe we owe it to ourselves to finish the story our way. The air in the bistro thickened with quiet emotion. Kirk's voice softened. I don't know where we go from here, but I know I don't want to go alone. Rasheeda blinked fast, then said, that's the thing about love. You don't get to promise perfect. You just promise presence. Mona wiped her eyes quietly behind the camera. Cut, she whispered, even though no one had acted. The clip aired that night. Short, simple, no background music, just them, sitting across from each other, telling the truth like a prayer. Fans flooded the comments. This feels different. They finally let go of the performance. Maybe love really does win when it stops trying to look like it's winning. And for once, even the blogs went quiet. No scandal, no twist, no villain. Just two people who refused to quit even when the world begged for another fall. In their kitchen, Rasheeda closed her phone and looked at Kirk. You realize we just made Peace go viral. Kirk smiled, small and tired. Guess we finally gave them a new kind of drama. Later that night, when the city had quieted and the glow of their latest interview still lingered on every gossip page, Kirk and Rasheeda sat in the dim living room with the television off. The house hummed with stillness. Through the window, faint sounds of cars and cicadas blurred together. Rasheeda tucked her legs beneath her and said, you know they'll move on soon. New season, new scandal. Somebody else's mess will trend. Kirk nodded slowly. Good, let them. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like he owed the world an explanation. No rehearsed lines, no posts crafted for sympathy. The quiet wasn't emptiness anymore, it was space. Space to breathe, to rebuild, to figure out what existed between them when no one else was watching. Rasheeda picked up the remote and turned on a slow playlist, old R&B. The kind they used to play in the car when they were broke but happy. Kirk smiled faintly. You remember this? She said. You used to sing this off-key. He laughed under his breath. Still do. They didn't talk about forgiveness that night. They didn't talk about the future. They just sat in that easy silence, the kind that doesn't ask for anything. Outside, Atlanta glittered like it always had, live unpredictable, hungry for stories, but for once, their names didn't belong to it. By the next morning, the world had indeed moved on. A new celebrity fight took over the timelines, pushing the Frosts down the feed. And that was exactly how they wanted it. Rasheeda poured coffee, still half asleep, and said, looks like we're not the headline anymore. Kirk sipped his cup. Finally, Mona called that afternoon, her voice softer than usual. The clip hit numbers we didn't even predict, she said. You two reminded people what grown love looks like. Kirk chuckled. You mean messy and tired? Mona laughed back. Yeah, exactly that. After hanging up, he found Rasheeda in the backyard, trimming plants she'd been too busy to touch for months. Mona says we went viral for being boring, he said. She smiled faintly. Guess it's a new era. He leaned on the railing. You really think we're okay? She stopped trimming, looked at him, then shrugged lightly. We're not perfect, but we're trying. And maybe that's enough. The days that followed blurred into a rhythm that almost felt ordinary. Mornings at the bistro, evenings at home. No press, no cameras. Their kids started joking that mom and dad are soft now. Kirk would just laugh and say, nah, we just learned not to fight where the world can see. Every so often, someone would still shout their names in public, or a fan would ask for pictures, but it didn't bother them anymore. They'd learned how to exist beyond the noise. One evening, after closing up the bistro, they locked the doors and stood outside under the soft amber streetlights. The mural of them painted long ago, smiling, untouched by the years watched over them quietly. Rasheeda tilted her head toward it. "We don't look like that anymore." Kirk smirked. "We look better. We look real." She smiled back. Maybe love didn't win. Maybe it just refused to lose. He nodded, taking her hand. "That's close enough." And as they walked to the car, the city buzzed on without them. Another story. Another scandal. Another flame somewhere else. But for once, Kirk and Rasheeda weren't running from the noise or performing for it. They were just living through it, imperfect, steady, and together. The next week rolled in quietly, like the city itself was giving them a chance to breathe. The cameras were gone. The phone calls fewer. The comments softer. Frost Bistro filled each day with the same small routines that once felt impossible to return to. Rasheeda greeting regulars by name. Kirk handling deliveries in the back, laughter coming easy again from the kitchen staff. It was almost ordinary. And that ordinariness felt new. One evening after closing, the two of them sat at the bar sharing a plate of leftover wings. No stage lights, no producers, just the hum of the fridge and the faint buzz of traffic outside. Rasheeda looked around the empty space. The place that had seen every version of them, success, betrayal, silence, and now something like peace. "It's funny," she said softly. "This place nearly broke us, and now it's the only thing that feels real." Kirk chewed thoughtfully, nodded. "Guess we had to tear down everything fake before we could see what was left." Her phone buzzed. An email from a magazine offering a front-page spread titled "Love Wins. The Frost Comeback." She turned it face down without opening it. "You want this?" she asked. He shook his head. "No more comebacks. Just life." They closed up and walked out together into the soft Atlanta night. The air smelled like rain that hadn't arrived yet. Streetlights stretched gold over the wet pavement. Kirk looked at her and said quietly, "You think people will believe we're happy?" Rasheeda smiled faintly. "Who cares if they do?" He laughed under his breath. It was the first honest laugh in a long time, one that didn't carry weight behind it. For a moment, neither of them were Kirk and Rasheeda. Reality TV icons or tabloid names, they were just two people who had survived the noise and found a little quiet left to hold. The next morning, Kirk drove to the studio where everything had started. Same cracked steps. Same faint smell of coffee and cables. No cameras this time. He walked through the rooms, remembering the days when love had been a performance and pain had been a paycheck. He found the producer who had helped him trace the leaks, sitting by a mixing board. "It's over," he said. She glanced up. "The drop." He shook his head. "No. The game." She smiled a little. "You sure?" "Yeah," he said. "This time, I'm not selling my own mess." Later that day, he stopped by his son's school to pick him up. The boy climbed into the car, tossed his backpack in the back seat, and said, "People at school keep saying you and Mom are goals." Kirk grinned. "They'll stop once they have real relationships." His son laughed. "You still trending though?" Kirk shrugged. "As long as your mom's smiling, they can trend me all they want." Back home, Rasheeda was in the garden trimming leaves, earbuds in, humming to an old Mary J. Blige song. Kirk stood at the doorway, watching her for a moment before walking over. She turned, surprised. "You left the house without telling me?" "Just checking on old ghosts," he said. "They're quiet now." She nodded. "Good, let's keep it that way." As twilight spread over Atlanta, they sat together on the porch again, 2 cups of coffee cooling between them. Number film crew. No script. Just the kind of stillness they'd chased for years without knowing it. Kirk looked out over the neighborhood and said, "You think this is how love wins?" Rasheeda tilted her head. "No, love doesn't win. It just survives everything that tries to kill it." He smiled, reaching over to take her hand. And for once, there was no need to prove anything. No post to make it real. The world would keep spinning. The headlines would fade. And their story, flawed, loud, messy, human, would finally belong to them again. Rain started the next morning before sunrise, soft and steady against the windows, soaking the yard and the street beyond. The house smelled like coffee and warm bread. Kirk sat at the kitchen table in a white t-shirt, scrolling through messages from friends he hadn't heard from in years. Most said the same thing. "Proud of you, man. Real growth." He read them quietly, a little unsure how to feel about praise that came after so much damage. Rasheeda came in tying her robe, hair still damp from the shower. "You cooking?" she asked, half teasing. "Thinking about it," he said. She poured herself coffee and leaned against the counter. "Don't think. Just do." He laughed and reached for the skillet. The rhythm felt ordinary, almost peaceful. While he cooked, she checked the bistro's socials bookings full through the weekend. Reviews better than ever, most of them mentioning how different the atmosphere felt. It made her smile. Maybe people could sense when a place healed. By mid-morning, the rain turned to a mist. Kirk stepped onto the porch with his cup and looked out over the quiet street. Cars rolled by slower than usual, like the world was taking a breath. For the first time in years, he didn't feel watched. Not by cameras, not by rumors, not by regret. Rasheeda joined him, wrapping a blanket around her shoulders. "So," she said, "what's next?" He shrugged. "Nothing big. Maybe take a week off. No shows. No deals. Just disappear for a bit." She smiled softly. "We've said that before." "Yeah," he said, "but this time, I think I mean it." They spent the afternoon cleaning, cooking, calling family. Simple things that had once felt like chores now felt like a kind of grace. Every so often, Kirk would glance at her how she moved through the room. How calm she looked, and he'd think about how close they'd come to losing all of this. In the evening, a call came from Mona. Kirk hesitated before answering. Her tone was light. "You two ready for a break?" He smiled. "You spying on us?" "Always," she said, laughing. Then, after a pause, "You know, people forget the show started as love stories before it turned into war zones. What you did reminded them." "We didn't do anything special," he said. "We just stopped lying." "That's special enough," she replied, then let him go. After dinner, Rasheeda went upstairs to write in her journal. Kirk stayed downstairs, replaying the quiet moments in his head. The video, the porch, the laughter. Maybe that's what love winning really meant, not fireworks. Not perfect endings. Just two people still showing up after everything. Before bed, Rasheeda called him into the room. She held up her phone, showing an old photo she'd found both of them in the bistro kitchen years ago. Messy aprons, grease stains, big smiles. "You remember this day?" she asked. "First time we opened. We thought we knew what love was. And we didn't," he said. "Not even close." She laughed. "Well, maybe we do now." They lay down, the rain easing into silence outside. Kirk reached over, tracing her hand with his thumb. "If we ever make it back on camera," he said quietly, "let's make it for something that matters." "Like what?" she asked. "Like us," he said. She smiled in the dark. "That's all I ever wanted." And when morning came again, Atlanta would move on to its next story, another scandal waiting to trend. But the Frosts had finally stepped out of the noise. Not perfect, not healed, not finished, just real, and still together. For them, that was enough. The next morning began with sunlight instead of rain. The kind that makes the air in Atlanta look golden for a few quiet minutes before the heat takes over. Kirk opened the blinds and stood for a moment, just watching the light move across the floorboards. For years he had woken up to schedules, alarms, producers, interviews, headlines. Now there was nothing pressing, no one waiting for a quote, no storyline to defend. The silence felt strange, but clean. Rasheeda came in behind him, a towel over her shoulder, hair still damp. "You're up early again," she said. He smiled. "Habit. You should unlearn that," she replied. She walked past him, poured coffee, and leaned on the counter the way she always did when mornings were good. They talked about small things, first the bistro's supply order, a new flavor for the dessert menu, the boys' weekend plans. There was no drama in their voices, no tension buried between words. It felt like two people relearning how to exist without noise. By noon, they were out in the city together, running errands they used to send assistants for. They stopped at a flower market on the east side, bought herbs for the restaurant garden, and laughed when a woman recognized them and said, "Y'all look peaceful." "That's new." Rasheeda smiled and said, "We're practicing." In the car, Kirk turned down the music. "You ever think about how many people think they know us?" he asked. She nodded. "Everybody thinks they know us. That's how the business works." "So what are we now?" he said. "Off the clock," she answered. Back home, the afternoon heat thickened. They worked in the garden together, hands in the dirt, the world reduced to simple things, sunlight, soil, sweat. When Rasheeda looked up, Kirk was watching her. That quiet kind of stare that had nothing to do with guilt or apology, just noticing. "What?" she said, smiling. "Nothing," he replied. "Just, it's good to see you here." As evening settled in, they ate dinner on the porch, watching the street fill with lights. Neighborhood kids rode bikes up and down the sidewalk. Somewhere in the distance, music drifted from a parked car. It was all so ordinary that it felt unreal. Kirk said softly, "You think the peace lasts this time?" Rasheeda took a slow breath before answering. "Peace doesn't last. You have to keep choosing it. He nodded, eyes tracing the sky. Then I'm choosing it. Every day, she said. Not just when it's easy. Every day, he promised again. The porch light flickered. A storm was forming far off. Thunder rolling low but not yet close. She rested her head on his shoulder. They stayed that way until the air cooled and the first drops began to fall. Soft and steady, washing dust from the leaves and heat from the day. By night's end, the city would be quiet again, the world already turning toward its next scandal. But inside their small circle of light, love didn't have to win anymore, it only had to keep showing up. And for the first time in years, that was exactly what it did. The storm passed overnight. By morning, the world outside looked rinsed clean, the sky pale and sharp, the air damp but sweet. Kirk woke before the rest of the house, padding softly through the hallway toward the kitchen. The bistro keys sat on the counter beside Rasheeda's journal, her handwriting looping across the page in calm, even lines. He didn't read it, he just looked at it, the way a person looks at something they don't want to disturb. He brewed coffee and took it outside. The porch was still wet, the wood smelling faintly of rain. Somewhere down the block, a lawnmower started, birds cutting through the noise. Atlanta on an ordinary morning. No headlines, no hashtags, just life. Rasheeda joined him a few minutes later, a cardigan draped over her shoulders. You look like you're thinking, she said. About what? He shrugged. About how many times we almost lost this. She sipped her coffee and said, almost doesn't count, remember? Yeah, he said. But I think we needed the almost. They sat quietly for a while. She opened her phone, scrolling without really looking, then put it down again. No drama today? He asked. Not yet, she said. Give it time. He laughed. Nah, I think people finally let us rest. She smiled faintly. They didn't. We just stopped dancing for them. At noon, they headed to Frost Bistro together. The street smelled like fresh pavement and summer air. Inside, the staff greeted them with easy smiles. No tension, no whispers. The place felt alive again, music low, conversation warm. A couple at one table waved shyly. We saw the special, the woman said. Thank you for being honest. Rasheeda smiled. Genuine. Honesty's the only thing that ages well. While Kirk checked invoices in the back, Rasheeda walked through the dining room, touching the backs of chairs, straightening picture frames. The way she always did when she wanted to feel connected. She paused at a photo on the wall, her and Kirk from the opening day, standing close, both beaming. Years of weight sat behind those smiles now, but they still looked like two people trying. Later, after the rush died down, Kirk came out wiping his hands on a towel. You ever think about what comes next? He asked. What do you mean? I mean when the world stops talking about us completely. When we're just us again. Rasheeda tilted her head. That's what I've wanted all along. And if that means no more cameras, no more spotlight, then good, she said. Maybe peace looks like being ordinary. They left the restaurant hand in hand as the sun began to set. The air was heavy but soft, tinted with gold. Somewhere across town, a new rumor about someone else was already taking shape. But they didn't care. At home, they cooked dinner together, simple food, laughter filling the spaces where anger used to live. After eating, they sat in the living room. No TV, no phones. Rasheeda looked at him and said, You know what I realized? What? You asked. Love doesn't win or lose. It just keeps showing up until both people decide it's safe to stay. He reached for her hand, nodded once. Then I'm staying. The night fell quiet again. Just the hum of the ceiling fan and the faint sound of rain returning somewhere far away. Atlanta glowed through the windows, restless and alive, but inside that house finally everything was still. Days slipped into a rhythm that didn't feel like recovery anymore. Just living. Mornings at the bistro, afternoons running errands, nights that ended on the porch with quiet talk and shared coffee. The noise around them had faded to a hum, the way the ocean sounds after a storm, present, but distant. One afternoon, Kirk walked through the empty dining room before opening hours. Sunlight slid through the blinds, striping the tables in warm gold. He touched one of the chairs, remembering the shouting matches that once filled this space. The nights when Rasheeda stormed out, while cameras followed. He whispered to himself, We survived all that. Rasheeda came out from the kitchen carrying her planner. You talking to ghosts? She teased. Maybe, he said. They quieter now. She smiled. Let's keep it that way. She sat across from him, opening her notes. So, the bistro's booked solid for next month. We might finally be back in profit. He raised an eyebrow. For real? For real, she said. But this time, we save it. You reading my mind, he said, laughing. Nah, she answered. Just finally trusting my own. That night, Mona called again, this time just to talk. People keep asking when you're coming back, she said. Kirk smiled faintly. We already did. You know what I mean. Mona pressed. The show. The energy. Atlanta loves you too. He looked over at Rasheeda sitting beside him on the couch, folded into a blanket. Atlanta'll survive without us for a while, he said. Let the next couple break the internet. Mona sighed, but her voice was soft. You earned your peace. Don't lose it trying to prove it. He said quietly, we won't. After the call, Rasheeda rested her head on his shoulder. She's right, she murmured. Peace is work. He nodded. I'll clock in every day. Weeks passed like that, simple, almost unremarkable. Sometimes, fans still stopped them in grocery stores, saying, we prayed for y'all. Sometimes gossip pages tried to stir old rumors, but no one cared anymore. They'd given the world enough chapters to chew on. Now they were writing the ones that didn't need an audience. On a late Friday evening, they closed the bistro early. Rain had just started again, light and rhythmic. Rasheeda wiped the counter, then looked up at Kirk and said, remember when we used to argue about staying open late for tips? He smiled. Yeah, we thought money was the point. And now? She asked. Now peace is. They stepped outside under one umbrella, the street shimmering with puddles. For a moment, the world looked exactly like it did years ago. Atlanta, alive and glowing, but they weren't the same people anymore. In the car, Rasheeda turned to him. You still believe in love wins? She asked. Kirk started the engine, thought for a moment, then said, nah, I believe in love works. She smiled, eyes glinting in the dark. That's better. They drove home through the wet streets, the radio low, city lights blinking through the rain. When they reached the house, he parked and turned to her. So what do we do tomorrow? She shrugged lightly. Same thing. Live slow. Stay honest. He nodded. Then that's the plan. And somewhere in the quiet between the end of one story and the start of another, love didn't win or lose, it simply endured, steady as rain on Atlanta asphalt. A week later, the air in Atlanta turned heavy, again humid and slow, the kind of weather that made time feel softer. Life had settled into something almost startling in its calm. The bistro ran smooth, the kids were focused on school, and for the first time in years, Kirk and Rasheeda didn't feel like characters inside their own names. On Saturday morning, Kirk stood at the kitchen sink washing dishes while the radio played an old Outcast track. Rasheeda came in wearing one of his shirts, her hair tied up, still half asleep. You doing housework now? She said, smiling. He shrugged. Trying to earn some good karma before the next storm. She poured coffee. No storms this week. I checked. After breakfast, they decided to drive to Stone Mountain. No cameras, no staff, just the two of them. The road was long and green, the city fading behind them. When they reached the top, the view opened wide. All of Atlanta stretched under a hazy sky. Rasheeda stood with her arms crossed, the wind lifting her hair. Kirk watched her for a moment, and said, you ever think about how far we've come? Too far to turn back, she said, but not far enough to stop growing. They found a bench near the overlook. The city looked distant but familiar, full of memories that didn't sting anymore. Kirk exhaled. You remember when I thought love meant proving I was right? Rasheeda laughed softly. Oh, I remember. Every fight ended with you trying to win. And now? He asked. Now, she said, you finally learned that winning alone ain't winning. He nodded. Guess I had to lose you to figure that out. They stayed up there until sunset. When the light began to fade, Rasheeda took out her phone, snapped one picture of the horizon, and tucked it away without posting. Not everything needs an audience, she said quietly. He smiled. That might be the realest thing you ever said. Back in the city, Mona texted both of them, thinking of doing a Love Wins anniversary special. 1 year later. Only if you want it. Rasheeda saw it first. She showed Kirk the message, and they both just looked at it for a while. Finally, she said, you want to do it? Kirk shook his head. Nah, let them wonder how it turned out. Mystery's good for ratings too. Later that night, they sat on the porch again. The crickets were loud, the sky bruised with clouds. Kirk leaned forward, elbows on his knees. Funny thing, he said. I used to think peace would be boring. Rasheeda smiled at him. And now it's my favorite drama. She laughed quietly. That deep, warm laugh that used to break tension even in the worst fights. He leaned back, looking at her the way a man looks at something he finally understands he could have lost forever. So, she said after a moment, you think we made it? He thought about that for a long second, then answered, we didn't make it. We're making it. Every day. And the night went on like that, two people sitting still in the city that once turned their love into headlines, now reclaiming it one quiet breath at a time. No cameras, No captions, no need to explain, just the simple truth of what survived. If you're still watching right now, take a deep breath with me. Because you've just seen something most people never do anymore: two people choosing peace after chaos. That's not the kind of story that usually makes it to the front page, but here we are. Kirk and Rasheeda showed us that love isn't a headline, it's a decision. It's not perfect, not shiny, not filtered. It's heavy, it's slow, it's work. And maybe that's what makes it beautiful. So if you felt something watching their journey, even a small flicker of recognition, hold on to that. Because behind every argument, behind every post, behind every rumor, there's always a heartbeat trying to keep love alive. Kirk said it best when he whispered, "We didn't win, we just stopped losing each other." And maybe that's what all of us are looking for: to stop losing each other, to stop losing ourselves. Now I want you to think about this story for a second. How many times have you scrolled past a couple you thought you knew? How many times did you assume the picture told the whole truth? Kirk and Rasheeda lived under that lens for years. Every fight, every rumor, every silence magnified until it didn't even belong to them anymore. They let the world write their story, and they almost forgot they were the authors. But the moment they stopped performing, the moment they stopped trying to prove that love wins, that's when it actually did. This isn't a fairy tale ending. It's not a redemption arc, not a marketing plan. It's just two people waking up one day and saying, "Enough. No more pretending. No more trying to look okay for strangers who move on to the next scandal by morning." It's what happens when love grows up, when it stops needing applause. And maybe that's the real lesson here. We live in a world that rewards drama but forgets endurance. Everyone loves a breakup more than a rebuild. We celebrate chaos but skip the quiet part: the forgiveness, the work, the patience it takes to stitch something broken back together. But if you're watching this, maybe you're one of the few who understands that love isn't the fireworks, it's the afterglow. So here's what I want you to do. If this story touched you, don't just scroll away. Think about who you're fighting with right now, who you stopped calling, who you're still angry at but still miss. Text them, call them, or maybe just sit in your own quiet for a minute and let yourself feel the weight of what you almost lost. Because peace doesn't happen by accident, it happens by choice. Every morning you wake up and decide that love, in whatever form it comes, is worth trying for again. And for everyone watching who's ever been on the other side, the one who walked away, the one who didn't get the apology, the one who forgave in silence, this story's for you too. It's for the people who don't post every step of their healing. It's for the ones who keep loving even when it doesn't trend. Because the truth is, what happened with Kirk and Rasheeda isn't just theirs. It's a mirror. It's what happens to all of us when we live it too loud. When we forget that peace doesn't shout, it whispers, it waits, it forgives quietly. If you believe in that kind of love, the kind that endures after the noise, then hit that like button. Not for them, for you. For the part of you that still believes in second chances, in working through the mess, in choosing each other even after the world tells you not to. And if you've ever been in love, or lost it, or tried to rebuild it, drop a comment below and tell your truth. Because every story deserves to be heard, not just the ones polished for cameras. And don't forget, subscribe, not just to this channel, but to what this story means. Every time we bring you a moment like this, it's more than gossip. It's about the people underneath the headlines. It's about showing that real love still exists, even in a world addicted to spectacle. When you subscribe, you're helping us keep these stories alive, the raw, unfiltered kind that remind us what humanity sounds like. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it tonight. Maybe it's a friend who stopped believing in happy endings, or someone who thinks they're too far gone to fix what's broken. Send it to them and tell them, look, love doesn't have to be perfect to survive. Let this story be proof that growth is possible, forgiveness is power, and starting over isn't weakness, it's strength. Because the next time you see Kirk and Rasheeda's names online, maybe it won't be attached to a scandal. Maybe it'll just be a quiet update, a new recipe at Frost Bistro, a family photo, a soft moment. And maybe that'll be enough. Because the real win isn't in the noise, it's in the calm after it. Before you go, I want you to remember something simple. Peace isn't the absence of drama, it's the choice to stop feeding it. Love isn't the end of conflict, it's the willingness to fight for what matters in the right way. And forgiveness isn't surrender, it's freedom. So take this story with you tonight. Carry it into your relationships, your friendships, your family. Choose patience when anger feels easier. Choose honesty when silence feels safer. And most of all, choose love. Not because it's glamorous, but because it's real. Hit that subscribe button. Turn on the notifications. And stay with us for more stories like this, stories that remind you the human heart is still beating behind every headline. Drop your thoughts below. Tell us what love wins means to you. And let's keep building a community where truth matters more than the show. Because in the end, that's all any of us want, to be seen for who we are, not who the world says we should be. Kirk and Rasheeda found that in each other again. Maybe tonight, you can start finding it too. And remember this, the world loves noise, but peace lasts longer. Love doesn't need to win, it just needs to stay.